First, let's talk about the madness. It started last night with 2 play-in games, and we got 2 more tonight. The first 4 is almost complete, and then 16 games will happen over the course of the next 48 hours. I'm going to welcome in Isaac Trotter and Chris Walker, as always, to help me break it down, because you know what is on tap. We have got the most exciting time of year. Which Cinderellas will advance? Which higher seeds will march on to San Antonio? We are going to find out. Fellas, thank you, as always, for joining us. Trotter, we're going to start right at the beginning of the day on Thursday, and we're just going to go through this time by time. So 12:15 on Thursday, Creighton versus Louisville. Tell me who you got winning this one.
I went with Louisville. Don't know if I feel great about it, but I am riding with the Cardinals. A little bit of a home game, so to speak, right there in Lexington. So they should have a terrific crowd. And I just like the matchup for them in a lot of different ways. I think you kind of know the drill with Creighton defensively. They force a lot of those mid-range twos. Ryan Kalkbrenner, the king of verticality is what I call him. He's going to be looming around the rim. But Chucky Hepburn and Terrence Edwards Jr., both those guys are very comfortable getting the middle of the floor, hitting those pull-up twos, those little floaters. They've played at a really high level. And I also think Hepburn's defense is going to be a huge factor in this one, especially how he guards Stephen Ashworth. Now, a little bit of a concern, like some controversy of him getting ACC Defensive Player of the Year, but that shouldn't take anything away from him. He's a phenomenal defender. I think he can give Ashworth some real issues. If Louisville kind of just turns the water off on everybody else and goes, hey, Kalkbrenner, like, we'll let you get 35. Like, I think that might be their recipe. Turn the water off on everyone else. Kalkbrenner, you can't outscore all of us ourselves, and we'll let Hepburn and Edwards lead the charge. So I'm riding with Pat Kelsey in the first round.
All right, Chris, he's riding with Pat Kelsey. Who are you riding with?
Man, I don't know why Trotter and I always disagree on everything, but I'm absolutely going with the Big East. I'm going with Creighton. Ryan Kalkbrenner, 4-time Big East Player of the Year. This program has been unbelievable in the Big East, the way they've risen. Here's the thing that's going to be different about this matchup. This matchup is going to be interesting because Creighton is the 7th tallest team in the country. That length, and they do not foul. Kalkbrenner's never fouled out, so they're gonna get a steady diet of him. Greg McDermott is an unbelievable offensive mind. Ashworth is a 3-point shot the minute he gets off the bus, but there are others. And Jemiah Neal, I think, is a budding star for them as well. This team, this program has been on an unbelievable trajectory. And listen, I, for one, thought when Pop Isaacs went down that Creighton was done. And it just shows you the mastery of Greg McDermott to keep these guys moving forward. Now Louisville's going to be tough. Let's get something straight. Pat Kelsey absolutely did a fantastic job. First time they're getting to the ACC finals since they've been in the ACC, and had to amass a complete new roster. And Chucky Hepburn, coming from Wisconsin, just changed the game. So listen, it's going to be a tremendous game. A lot of people think Louisville was underseeded. Here's their chance to prove what North Carolina had to prove last night from the ACC. But I'm taking Big East, and I'm taking the Creighton Blue Jays.
Yeah, I am with you. I think it's going to be a terrific game. Remember, this is an interesting little statistic. 9 seeds have won more than 8 over the course of the last 6 years. We will see if that holds true here this week. Keeping up with the rest of Thursday's schedule, at 12:40, High Point, a 13 seed, goes against Purdue. Both of you guys have Purdue in this one. I do think there's a path to High Point getting a win here. Allen Huss has a top 25 offense in the country. If they can make threes and score the ball at a rapid rate, I think they could be, statistically speaking, the 113 seed that gets an upset. That's usually what happens every year. Could it be High Point this year? I think it's going to come down to the defensive end of the floor. At 1:30, we've got Montana, the 14 seed, against Wisconsin. Everybody is aligned on that one, picking Wisconsin, as well as Montana finished the season. Remember, they had blowout losses to both Tennessee and Oregon earlier in the season. It's just hard to imagine that defense is going to be able to contain Wisconsin. Coming up next at 2 p.m., SIUE against Houston. I don't think we need to say much more, but hey, I could be wrong. We could see UMBC again. And at 2:50, Alabama State, the triple tip with 0.7 of a second left. They get to move on and play Auburn. I was asked on HQ last night, what do they need to do to beat Auburn? And I said, I think they should enjoy this win over St. Francis.
They need
and
us.
Then, guys, this is the no doubt about it. This is the one I want to get into, guys. Number 12 McNeese against number 5 Clemson. We've got an interview with Will Wade coming up just after this, and I talked to Will about this game. But you guys are split on this one. Trotter, tell me who you went with in this matchup.
I went with Clemson, and I don't feel great about this one. I think this one's going to be 58-55 with 3 to go and going to be really, really determined down the stretch. Now, the one thing that I keep going back to with Clemson is I just trust their guards. Like Chase Hunter is a terrific, terrific player. Jaden Zachary out of Boston College has had a sneaky great season this year, especially defensively as well. And the proof of concept with Clemson, where they have 3 guys who, Chauncey Wiggins, Ian Shefflin, and Victor Locken, having that size, 6'10", 6'8", 7 foot, Clemson's going to post you up a ton. And I think they can find just enough mismatches. But and Chris will get into it with McNeese. I have a ton of respect for this McNeese team. Their triple switching against ball screens is electric. I think they're going to give Clemson a lot of issues. And I just don't know if they can score because this Clemson defense, they're very physical, they're very big, and they're extremely old. I think they pack the paint, do a really nice job turning the water off at the rim. And it's going to kind of come down to how many threes McNeese can hit because I just don't see a lot of sources of offense at the rim.
All right, Chris, give me the counterpoint.
Here's the counterpoint. The counterpoint is that interview that you're about to show. That's the counterpoint. It's Will Wade. And then, again, the irony of the NCAA of allowing him to play against his old school is absolutely hilarious to me. Will Wade, as a head coach, has been in the tournament 7 of 8 times being a head coach. 7 of 8 seasons he's been a head coach. He's been to the NCAA tournament. That's something to fear. They have dominated the Southland Conference. He has used the transfer portal similar to some of these other schools like Kentucky has used it, like Pat Kelsey has used it. People aren't talking about what Will Wade has done and bringing in kids that have played at high major universities. Now you put them in the system. Don't look at the Southland school and Will Wade. Will Wade was the head coach of VCU. Will Wade was the head coach of LSU. A lot of his players are the same way. So that's why I say these people got to be careful when they're picking these games and they're looking at, oh, they're playing McNeese State. No. That's not who they're playing. They're playing a high major program. And, Zach is right. Can they play inside? Can they defend inside? It has nothing to do with that. This game is all about mojo. And I'll say this again. You're playing a champion. Clemson is playing a champion. They've won 27 games, the most they've ever won. Brad Barnell, finally, hopefully his job's not on the line, Fink. He's been able to get past that, the most winning coach in Clemson history. But that can all be undone, even though he went to the Elite Eight, in a snap of a finger with Will Wade, who's, he's a lightning rod, and he's a Clemson guy.
He is a Clemson guy. In fact, did you know McNeese does not practice on days when Clemson football is playing because he wants to watch the Clemson football games? We're going to get into that and a whole lot more with Will in just a couple minutes. But first, let's talk about what I think is one of the best first-round games we're going to see on Thursday or Friday, and that's VCU against BYU. Fellas, I got to admit, I was surprised you guys were both aligned on this one. Trotter, tell me who you picked here.
I went with VCU just because I think their defensive pressure and their game plan is really similar to the Houston defense that gave BYU troubles not once, but twice. VCU does a great job of limiting those drive and kick threes. That is BYU's offense to a T. This is a terrific pick and roll defense. And I like to back teams in March that have big, strong, experienced guards. And VCU absolutely has that. Max Shulga is a big guard. Joe Bamaseal is a big athletic guard who can jump out of the gym. Zeb Jackson, another big, strong former high major player at Michigan who can play at a high level. And I think Philip Russell is the huge X factor for me in this one. BYU, a lot of drop coverage. They open up the floor for those middle of the floor pull-up jumpers. Philip Russell, 60% on pull-up twos. I think he has got to have at least 12 to 14 points to kind of withstand the BYU run. But yeah, again, this is a tough matchup, too, because you also have to factor in the location. We're heading out to Denver. I expect BYU to have a terrific crowd there. And, that fan base is going to travel like crazy. But VCU is a tough team. If you haven't watched the A-10 this year and you flip VCU on, the level of athletes and size that they have and rim protection, they look like a high major team to me.
All right, now, Chris, I'm going to give you the last word on this. I admit I was a little surprised that you and Trotter were aligned on this, picking against BYU. I think Kevin Young has done – fair enough. Kevin Young has done a phenomenal job all season long, but in particular in the last month of the season. A lot of people talk about pace and space. BYU plays with it. I admit, this is not a great matchup. I'm sure that they were clapping on Selection Sunday, but in the back of their mind, they were thinking, oh, man. But If they get past this game, if they get past VCU, I think BYU could make a run to the Sweet 16. Chris, anything to put a bow on this?
You're right about this. Kevin Young is a sensational coach. Had a chance to spend time with when I did their game at West Virginia. An NBA guy through and through, uses analytics through and through. But here's what I will say. They're a great offensive team. They shoot it at a high clip. You mentioned Richie Saunders, who leads them. Like, this team is really, really good, and they played in the Big 12. Let me juxtapose it with VCU. As I said with McNeese State, Joe Bamisfield played at Oklahoma. Zeb Jackson started at Michigan. Max Shoga started at Utah State. Philip Russell got to an NCAA tournament. Jack Clark played with Clemson in the Elite Eight last year. They have unbelievable rim protection with Bamboye, the freshman, and Chris Furman. They turned teams over 15 times in 15 games, 15 plus turnovers. This team is elite, right? I thought they should have been in the NCAA tournament regardless of what happened based on their net. This team is really good. Ryan Odom is a big-time coach. I'm telling you right now, this is the game to watch of the day, right? And I called it last year with Duquesne, with Day Grant and Jimmy Clark. This team is much better. And the last thing I'll say is this, Fink and Isaac, they're very experienced. These guys are all like 23 years old, so they're not going to be afraid of BYU. And home court advantage or playing in Denver, none of that matters. And I'll say this, VCU travels as well. So this game is going to be one to watch. I think it's going to be high scoring and a fun one.
All right, 4:35 East Coast time. We've got another 8-9 game that's between Georgia and Gonzaga. And what do you know? Trotter and Walker are aligned again. Chris, I'm going to come back to you. Tell me why you and Isaac both believe Gonzaga is the favorite in this one.
Just because their presence inside. Gonzaga just destroys people in the paint. Obviously, Nembhard is a big-time guard in regard of distributing the basketball, and Gonzaga's always been great at sharing the ball. But Graham, Ike inside, you got Huff. I mean, they just have a lot of weapons. Again, they lost 4 games in the WCC, and they weren't able to get past St. Mary's, who's a tremendous team as well. But hey, Mark Few's been in 9 straight Sweet 16s. Let me say that again, 9 straight Sweet 16s. And they're AC. They're used to being a 1 and a 2 seed. Who in the heck wants to see Gonzaga on the other side of the ledger? Georgia, in my opinion, the 14 teams getting in the SEC, no disrespect to Mike White. They beat St. John's when St. John's didn't even know they were St. John's after playing 4 games in the Bahamas. That was their only really win in the non-con, and everybody was getting a quad 1 win if you played a home game in the SEC. So I don't know how good Georgia really is. We're going to find out. But again, WCC and Gonzaga, they're flying at the right time, playing hard at the right time, and it's hard to go against a guy who's been to 9 Sweet 16s, and maybe we're looking past Gonzaga, and this may be the team that sneaks in the back door.
Gonzaga is also one of the trendiest upset picks there is going. If anybody wants to make a case for Georgia, it is this. Asa Newell, a potential lottery pick, may be the best big man in this game. He's certainly the most naturally talented big man in this game. Georgia is a 20-win team in an SEC that set the record for postseason NCAA appearances by more than 3 spots. The Big East had 11 in 2011. SEC got 14 this year. Georgia won 20 games in that league. They also have a top 26, on the verge of top 25 defense in the country. We'll see if that is enough, but most people, like Trotter and Chris, are picking Gonzaga in that one.